Order, please.
Mayor Roland Dyke.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Here.
Alderman Connie Ball.
Here.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Here.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Here.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Here.
City Attorney Terry Hurst.
Here.
City Administrator James Fincham.
Here. We do have a quorum and can do the business of the City of Newport, Tennessee. In your package, you have received a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting from June 14th, 2022. If you've had a chance to look those over, we entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. We have a motion on the board then to approve the minutes of June 14th, 2022. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item 4 is proclamations and a recognition of citizens by the mayor, of which I have none at this time. Item 5 will be communications from our city administrator, Mr. James Fincham.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much on my agenda tonight. We do have we've had a little bit of a resurgence with COVID within our ranks. We've got 2 city employees out with COVID currently and 1 out in quarantine. Supposed to be getting his test results back anytime. This Thursday, we'll be having our 4th concert, Rhythm on the River. Jigsaw Jane will be here at 7 o'clock Thursday night, and then in 2 weeks we'll be having our final one, which is Grits from Dumpling Valley. Both of those come every year and are well received. At the last concert we had close to 300 people, so we're getting back to kind of where we were before the pandemic. We were running right around 300 at every one till the pandemic hit, and then that put us back, but we're about to build back up to where we were. And finally, hopefully between now and the next meeting, we'll have another litter pickup on a Saturday with volunteers from within the street and Parks Department. So that's all I got.
Wow.
Well, I've got more later, but that's all I've got on my agenda.
Had to get it started.
Yeah, I just got me loosened up.
Okay. All right. Then item 6 will be appointment of boards, commissions, and committees. Item A is consideration of reappointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Mr. Blake Briggs.
I'll make a motion to be reappointed. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to reappoint Mr. Blake Briggs to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. Nays like sign. Hearing none.
Mayor, just for the record, I will add, all of these individuals have expressed an interest and desire in staying on these boards.
Okay. The vote is, please signify your approval by aye. Aye. Nays like sign. Motion carries. Item B is consideration of reappointment to the board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Debbie Wiley.
I make a motion to reappoint Debbie Wiley.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board then to reappoint Debbie Wiley to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. Nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item C is consideration of reappointment to the Industrial Development Board, Page Rhodes.
I make a motion to reappoint Paige Rhodes to the IDB.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion done on the board to reappoint to the Industrial Development Board, Page Rhodes. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item D is consideration of reappointment to the Industrial Development Board, Mr. Jason Oury.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Jason Oury.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion then on the board to reappoint Mr. Jason Lowry to the Industrial Development Board. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye.
Aye.
Nays, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7 is reports from committees, members of council, and other officers. Anyone wish to be heard? Have anything? Gary, do you have any update on the cosmetic improvements at the Tanner Building?
I started to order materials and kind of plan out what can be done first, depending on what sort of stuff we can get in first.
All right. Item 8 is old business. Consideration of the second reading of ordinance number 2022-11, amending the zoning map of the city of Newport for 834 Martini Street.
And Mayor, if I might read the caption of that into the record first, it's ordinance, 2022-11, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Newport from R-1 low-density residential to C-3 Interstate Highway Business District located at 834 Martini Street.
Terry, correct me if I'm wrong. They need 40 feet instead of 30 feet. So we took action in Planning Commission last month to send that over for approval. Do we have to start all over, or?
Of course, this ordinance says 40 feet being removed.
Okay, all right. So we can just edit that, right, and then go with that as the reading. Okay,
Yes.
Then we're good. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to do it differently. Yeah, if it's saying 40 feet, that's what they need is 40 feet, and I think we'd approach it. Okay, good.
Are there questions? Okay, you've heard the reading of the ordinance. Any questions?
So there's been no negative responses from citizens about this?
Not this time.
No, Kendall was informed of what his, when he could say his piece, and when the next planning commission was, and then when the next city council was. So I've tried to explain it to him best I could, and I think that he knows, and Steve's talked to him too. At no point am I professionally or is anybody on the board going to do anything that would harm or seek to do harm to any of our residents. But also, we've got a multi-million-dollar investment on Cosby Highway that we got to think about. So this doesn't infringe on, it doesn't make the lot substandard size, it doesn't infringe on anything that the planning commission or that I felt like would do anything to the neighborhood. So
Not bringing the road in.
correct, yeah. Just moving back the property line a couple feet.
And it doesn't bust through into Martini?
Does not, no sir.
Okay, thank you.
I spoke with Kendall Williams on Monday, and after our conversation, I feel like that he had a better understanding of the plans of the rezone.
Good. I'm glad you did that and I don't think you wanted to listen to me about it. So.
All of us tried.
Yeah.
Got in touch with all of us.
It was a very amicable conversation. It ended very well.
When it's complete, they're going to put a fence back there too.
Right.
So that,
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, going to be better than looking at the back of the building or dumpsters or
It is.
vehicles. And he understood that as well.
Honestly, because there's nothing there now between that and the shop,
Right.
it'll be better.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the ordinance and the presentation. What's the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve ordinance 2022-11 as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consideration of second reading of ordinance number 2022-11, amending the zoning map of the city of Newport for 834 Martini Street. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye.
Aye.
Any nays, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for taking care of that matter.
Item number 9, new business. Discussion of the audit review for fiscal year 2021. Frank, you are up.
Hey, Mayor, thank you. Thank you, city council members. I have a letter here. Tina was assisting in passing that out. This is, there should be a copy for you today.
Thank you.
This letter that Tina's passing out is a normal communications letter. Goes over some of the required communication items between the auditor and the entity, in this case, City of Newport. The letter in the first page just tells that we completed the audit and issued the report. It also talks about the fact that we did not audit the Newport electric or broadband systems or the Newport water and sewer systems. And obviously our opinion in this report, because they are included, is places reliance on other auditors who did perform those audits. Professional standards also requires that we follow normal audit guidelines here in the U.S. Also, we have to follow governmental audit standards, and as well we follow the uniform guidance for federal audits where the entity receives funding and expenditures greater than $750,000 in their fiscal year. And with the city and the school system included, you all were in excess of that. So we did perform a single audit related to certain programs that we selected. For the last couple of years, your all's reports have not contained any findings, which this report this year does not contain any significant audit deficiencies or material weakness findings. So you do qualify as a low-risk auditee, which basically when we're doing those federal guidelines, the uniform guidance audits on those federal programs, we only have to audit 20% of the federal expenditures rather than 40%. So it is helpful, obviously, to be in that category as a low-risk auditee. In the rest of that page, it talks about significant audit areas, qualitative aspects of the accounting practice. Your all's financials are comparative to the previous year. There's no major differences between 20 and 21 in presentation. We do have certain accounting estimates, and those are in any financial statements. At the bottom of page 1, it talks about some of the more important ones. The estimate of depreciation expense for capital equipment and capital use assets is dependent on an estimate of the useful life of those assets in calculating the annual depreciation charge. Also, citywide, between the schools and the city, there are various pension and post-employment benefit plans that require actuarial valuations. And those actuarial valuations do have lots of estimates in them. Annual interest discount rates, healthcare cost trends, and it also incorporates estimates of when the retirement age is going to be reached in those plans and lots of other assumptions. And so those actuarial evaluations and the liability or asset that's reported on the books of the city and the school system is dependent on those estimates. And then we do mention on the next page that the financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. They're quite lengthy. If you thumb through your book, you'll see that probably almost half the report is no disclosures because there's lots of disclosures about accounting policies, the pension plans, the OPEB plans, and lots of other items. We didn't encounter any difficulties in dealing with management and the performance of the audit here at the city or at the schools. As far as corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we didn't have anything unusual or that was not to be expected in the normal course of our work. And none of those entries that we proposed to management were really individually or in aggregate material to the financial statements. We didn't have any disagreements with management. We did request a management representation letter dated the date of the report. Management provided that letter. As far as consultation about accounting matters, from time to time, we will have management inquire with myself or with Haley Slagle, who is the supervising partner on the engagement on a day-to-day basis. We do respond to those inquiries occasionally. We're not aware that our answers or what our thoughts are about those questions are have any effect on our retention, or that there's been any second opinions from other accountants about those matters. As far as other matters, there are a lot of information on the bottom of that page and the last page of this letter where it talks about other information besides the financial statements. Some of that is required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board to be included in a governmental report. Comptroller here in Tennessee requires that you comply completely with all accounting standards of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board in the preparation of your reports. In the preparation of that, there are some required supplementary information about the pension plan trends, the post-employment benefit trends, and other information that are required along with the management discussion analysis. We don't audit that information, but we do compare it to the financial statements to make sure it's included properly and that the numbers do agree with the financial statements. There are also other supplementary information included with the report, and most of that is required by the Comptroller of Tennessee to be included. Some of them, for example, all your debt amortizations, any bonds and notes and leases are included there. And other information about what we consider non-major funds, and of course the federal expenditure schedule, and some other data about property taxes and other information. And then there's finally, in the statistical section, there's just some general information that's non-audited that tells a little bit about the size of the city and some statistics. So that pretty much covers this letter that is required communications. As far as the report, it's quite lengthy, about 160-something pages, I think. It's divided into sections. The financial section is at the beginning after the introductory section. There's a letter of transmittal, a list of principal officials, the various entities that make up the city as a whole. That's on page 3. And then the independent auditor's report is on page 4 and 5, 4 through 6. That report, if you'll turn over there, this is a standard report. It outlines the financial statements that we've audited, the responsibility of management about the financial statements, and the auditor's responsibility. And those are all in fairly generic terms. It does outline in the auditor's responsibility, it gives the information about the electric and broadband department, water sewer department, of Newport utilities, that those assets are included in the financial statements. And again, we're relying on other auditors concerning those amounts and numbers that are reported. But finally, on page 5, there at the top of the page is our opinion, and we give a unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements taken as a whole. And those include the governmental activities, it includes the business type activities in each major fund, and the respective budgetary comparisons of the major funds, which are the general school, purpose school fund and the general fund of the city. And then the respective changes in cash flows for the funds where that's applicable. So this is a clean, unqualified or unmodified opinion. And then there are additional information about the other matters here where we talk about the required supplementary information that we just discussed a moment ago and the other information schedules. We do give a positive in relationship opinion to the other financial information, which also includes the federal expenditure schedule, which is important to the single audit. And then finally, on the next page, page 6, we tell the reader in the last paragraph that there's other reports that we issue that are important to understand the full content of our audit, and those are reports on internal control and compliance and the federal assistance schedule where we've audited those federal programs. Those are in this booklet at the very back. The management discussion analysis follows on the next page 7, and this gives a good general sense of the information about the city and about the various funds and fund types of the city. So I would suggest, if you don't want to go through the whole detailed report, look at the MD&A or the management discussion analysis in detail, those pages, and they will give you a good overview. Because there's comparative statements on the balance sheet, comparative statements for the revenues and expenditures that will give you a good insight into the financial status of the city. I will point out on page 10, if you look at the column there, you can see that unrestricted at the government wide level, unrestricted fund balance or equity was $9,420,000 for all governmental activities. That includes the city, school, and all the city's funds. That does not include the utilities. They are in the business type activities. Then there's a comparative statement on page 12 of the governmental type activities of revenues and expenditures. And you can see for the year in that first column that the change in net position about 3/4 down the page there was $4,108,000 positive change on all governmental activities. So a real good financial year. Haley is going to say a few words about the fund statements because I think that will be a little more enlightening about the performance of how your funds are more laid out like your budgetary adoption. So that'll give you a little better idea about that.
I will just talk briefly a few moments about your fund balance growth. If you have the report in front of you, if y'all want to turn to page 28, I'm a visual person, I see numbers right in front of me. We'll talk about the general fund first. The general fund balance net growth was roughly 18%. You think I would know how to silence an Apple Watch, but I do not, evidently. And this was mostly related to a variety of factors. There was a lot of things we didn't know regarding the pandemic. We didn't know how much sales tax was going to grow. And management had prepared for a couple of lean budget years in response to the pandemic. So fund balance in the general fund grew pretty significantly at about 18%. In the governmental funds, we focus on major funds. We've got the general fund, and the general purpose school fund is also a major fund. It had growth of roughly 20%. Now, the ending fund balance in the general fund, I just want to point out, is nearly 100% of your expenditures for the fiscal year. That's very, very good. Many municipalities, when they adopt a minimum fund balance policy, follow GFOA guidelines, which is roughly 25%. The general fund is running at almost 100% as of 6/30/21, so that's very good. And the general purpose school fund is just over 50%, at about 56%, so it also has a pretty healthy fund balance as well. Those are just a couple of highlights. Do y'all have any questions about any of the numbers, fund balance, anything like that?
Could you repeat how good we did?
Fund balance is nearly 100% of expenditure. That's fantastic.
Man, you getting this down?
Remember that come November?
And the only other thing that I was going to touch on was the federal awards that we did audit for purposes of single audit. I'm on page 112, if you want me to flip over there. This schedule of federal and state awards only includes the city of Newport Grammar School. There were some federal awards at Newport Utilities, but those are not included here. The two programs that we audited this year was, we audited the ESSER program, the Tennessee Department of Education, Newport Grammar School. That included some COVID relief and coronavirus funds, and it was a high-risk program. It was deemed high-risk by the GFOA, but it was also a high-risk type B program just by its dollar amount. Then we also audited from the Coronavirus Relief Fund, Department of the Treasury. The city received some funding and the school system as well. Those came through the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration. We did audit that one for compliance, and you'll notice the dollar amount is a little bit smaller than we usually would audit. That was deemed a high-risk program automatically by GFOA, so that's why we chose that program to audit. And we didn't have any findings or issues with any compliance for those programs.
The selection of those programs that we audit is kind of dependent on a matrix that GOA issues in a compliance supplement format, where we basically have to rank each program between what is termed a program A or high risk A. That means the program itself automatically is audited because it goes over $750,000. Then we are into seeing where we're at on the threshold of meeting either the 40% or the 20% if you're a high-risk auditee or a low-risk auditee. Then if there are no programs over 750, then we start looking at B programs, which are high-risk Bs or low-risk Bs. And that's why we selected those two programs, as Haley mentioned. They were both considered high-risk Bs, and together we audited the two high-risk Bs, and they got us over the 20% total expenditure threshold. That's kind of the thought process on the risk-based selection related to the federal programs. So there is some kind of rhyme or kind of reasoning behind the rhyme of it all. But overall, as Haley mentioned, you all are in great financial footing. I won't harp or mention this, but 7 or 8 years ago, there was cash flow issues and lots of other issues related to the financing of the city's programs and your regular general expenditures that were required, where your revenues really weren't quite meeting what your normal expenditures even were, especially until you met your started receiving property taxes in January and February, and then you got into a little better cash flow position. But as some of you may remember, at one time you were even doing advanced loans on a short-term basis, tax anticipation notes, just to finance your normal operations till you got to that point. That's obviously way not necessary now. You have adequate cash to finance your operations, and then look at the capital needs of the city and try to meet those without having to absorb so much debt issues, where you can budget some of these capital outlays without having to borrow for them. So it's really good.
I think the city understands a little more, when it comes tax time. I think most of them do understand where their money's going and what better financial situation the city's in now.
Right. And of course, as we mentioned at the very end of these reports, on pages 136 to the back of the report, these are these other auditors' reports, and these are, the first one is a normal internal control and compliance report at the financial statement level. This report's a couple pages long, but it is a clean report with no findings or deficiencies. And then following that report on page 138 is the report on the federal programs we audited that were considered major programs, which is the two we mentioned, and there are no findings on those. That report is accompanied by a summary on page 140 that's required to go with that federal report. It just kind of outlines the fact there were no findings or deficiencies, that we gave an unmodified report, and it talks about the 2 programs that we did audit that we've already mentioned. And then finally, the comptroller here in Tennessee requires that you put a schedule in the report of how you address prior year findings. Whether you have any or not, the schedule still has to be in here. So the very last page of the report, 142, basically says there's no prior year findings so to be addressed. So that kind of wraps it up, Mayor, unless someone has some questions.
I'd like to thank the auditors and Tina especially, and James for working this budget stuff. Y'all done a real good job keeping us afloat on what's going on. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
to Tina and Finance Department and all the department heads who put up with our numerous inquiries. It's really
Yes.
appreciated.
They are very thorough in their work, I assure you. And, but I do appreciate the hard
Sometimes
work
we're
they
kind of
do.
pestering, but
Well,
that's our job.
It is. But they do work really hard. Obviously, they put a lot of work, and we appreciate how well they work with everybody. And I'd like to echo as well and thank all of our department heads and everybody in the staff that deals with it, because it is all across the organization.
Yeah.
But thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Frank.
you.
Thank you, Haley. I really appreciate it. Anybody have any more questions? If not, we'll move on. So item B is consideration of the first reading of ordinance number 2022-12, personnel policy for the city of Newport.
And Mayor, I'll read that ordinance into the record. It's ordinance number 2022-12, an ordinance to amend the City of Newport Municipal Code, Title 4, Municipal Personnel, by removing the current personnel policy and adopting a new personnel policy.
If y'all recall, a while back, we handed out a copy of the proposed new personnel policy. HR Director B.C. Masoner's here tonight. If you have any questions about anything that's in that, she's put in a lot of hard work on that. I appreciate all the hard work she has done. She has literally been working on this for years, and it's been a slow process. The government is constantly changing the rules, adding things, and so she stayed on top of that and tried to get everything in there that we need to make us compliant with state and federal regulations, and also to better define where we are on a lot of things. The old policy was a little vague and contradictory sometimes, and we've tried to clean all that up. Now, we may have missed something in there somewhere, but it's not for lack of effort on her part, because she has really spent a ton of time on this, and I hope y'all had time to look through it. Before we gave it to you all, we gave it to the department heads and let them have it for over a month to study it, to see if they had anything to address inside that they had either they didn't feel like had been addressed or something that had been addressed improperly. So there's been a lot of input went into this up until this point. And so I think it's going to help us as far as regulating the city's business through the employees. It's going to be much clearer on what, you can't have a rule on every single thing, but in this day and time, you have got to have it on a lot of things that used to you didn't. And sadly, we live in times where you've got to have a lot of rules, and because the government puts a lot, I know we're the government, but we are also bound to the state and federal governments, and we have to follow their guidelines. And so this should put us in good shape for a while, I hope.
Okay. Heard the reading of the ordinance. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to accept that. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve the ordinance number 2022-12, personnel policy for the city of Newport, has been properly seconded. We need a roll call. We need a roll call, Tina.
Alderman Connie Ball,
Yes.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item C is consideration of resolution number 2022-10, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners Safety Grant.
Again, Missy's here. She's the safety director. This is a grant that we apply for every year and have for the last several years. TML or PEP, whatever you want to call them, puts this money out for their clients, of which we are one. It's a 50% match up to it's 1,000 or 2,000. 4 now, it's went up. It's went up from back when I used to do it. And so there's lots of things we can use this on as far as safety equipment and boots or whatever. And so it helps us out every year. It's in their benefit because it helps us to try to cut down on our accident rate, injury rate for the employees. And it's a big asset to us every year.
All right, you heard the reading of the resolution. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve resolution number 2022-10, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners Safety Grant. It has been properly seconded. Are there any questions to the motion? Hearing none, we need a roll call.
Alderman Connie Ball.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item D is consideration of resolution number 2022-11, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners Driver's Safety Grant.
This is another grant that they put out. It's not been in place as long as the other one, but we have been participating in it for several years. It allows us to check. They recommend that you check every year everybody's driver's license number that drives a city vehicle to see if they've gotten any reckless driving citations, been arrested for DUI or anything like that. And so you have to pay for those. You can no longer, for the last several years, you have to pay the state to do those for you. And then it also will.
Driver's ed, people live.
Oh.
They've all been through the program, they're all right.
And it will also pay for, and if you can find it is the hard part, but supplemental training for folks that need to, if they have an accident, a at-fault accident or something, to try to find them a little bit of training to try to help them not have another one. But that is sorely needed sometimes, but it's extremely hard to find. There's not a lot of it out there. And it's another match like the other one.
Okay. For those of us who didn't get the joke, Coach Crawford is our driver's ed teacher.
They've been there the last 53 years, they've been doing okay.
I'm sure most folks in here probably do that, but anyway. All right, we have a motion on the board then to approve the resolution number 2022-11, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners Driver's Safety Grant.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve. Been properly seconded. Are there questions to the motion? Hearing none, please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye.
Aye.
Nays, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item E, consideration of audit contract between Brown, Jake, and McDaniel and the City of Newport for fiscal year 2022-2023.
But Mayor, you know, we've saw the fruit of their labors already for year before last, and it just so happens because this one got delayed, the audit report. Normally we do the audit report in April, as I'm sure you all recall. We got held up a little bit this year by causes beyond our control within you. But it just so happens that on the same night that they were here to do their belated audit report, it's up for their renewal. And certainly it would be our recommendation that we hire them to go around this merry-go-round one more time.
I do have one correction on the orange sheet. I see you wrote 22-23, and that should have been 21-22, just to make that clear. Just need to-
Make that correction.
Mayor, I make the motion to retain.
With the
I'll
proper
second.
edit, please.
I'll second it. Thank you.
The edit was for 2021, 2022?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you've heard, excuse me, you've heard the consideration of the audit contract. What's the board's pleasure? I think we have a motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Do we have a second? Okay,
Yes,
is that a
I'll
second?
second.
All right, we do need a roll call on this one.
Alderman Connie Ball,
Yes.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Item F is consideration of contract between 911 Emergency of Cotton County and the City of Newport.
Mayor, I'm going to request that this be postponed to a later date. There has been, as everyone is well aware, quite a bit of confusion and controversy revolving around the 911 board for the past month or so. Kind of thought that had worked itself out. We had negotiated a new contract with 911 with the old 911 board. You know, the county dissolved that board, appointed a new board that we did not negotiate with, and then they get a letter from the state saying they couldn't do that, that was not legal. So it is our understanding they were going to rescind that and put the old board back in place, but that has been taken off of their agenda, and so until that is resolved, and I know who that we're signing a contract with, it's my recommendation that we postpone that. And I have spoken with Director Hansel about it, and she understands our position on it. And so I'm just not comfortable agreeing to a contract that I don't know, is it with the people I made a contract with, or is it with a new group of people I did not negotiate a contract with? So it's my position that we hold off till we know who we're dealing with.
Probably don't need to have a vote on this, do we? So we just I've heard the presentation, then we'll postpone this until we have some resolution with the 911 board. Item G is discussion of the city administrator's contract.
Mayor, would like to propose that we extend Mr. Fincham's contract as is for another 3 years.
For another 3 years, you said?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion on the board then to extend current contract, city administrator James Fincham, for another additional 3 years. It has been properly seconded. Are there any questions to the motion?
Mayor, and I certainly appreciate it, and the only thing I would ask would be that nothing changed in my contract, but I would like to restart the buyout clause to where it resets. Since it's putting it back to a full 4 years, I'd like to ask respectfully that be restarted, because that would wind itself out at the end of the next year. And with extending it by 3 years, that puts it back to a 4-year contract, and I'd like for the buyout clause to reset. Hopefully it will be a non-issue, but I would respectfully ask that. Is the only thing I would ask. And I certainly appreciate the folks that have spoken to me about staying on and wanting to work with me, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot.
Appreciate you.
You do a good job, James.
Thank you.
Your staff does a great job, and we appreciate you. So I need to make another motion to
Just amend your current motion.
amend my current motion to include
The reset of the buyout
the reset of the buyout clause.
Okay.
You said.
Pardon me?
And you said.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
Don't you don't reset.
Reseconded.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
said, okay, I got you. All right. Do we have a motion on the board then to approve Mr. Fincham's contract for an additional 3 years and with provision of resetting the buyout clause? It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays like sign. Hearing none.
Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries.
I certainly appreciate your confidence, and I'll try not to let you down.
All right, consideration of amending the City of Newport Police Department General Orders.
I'm going to borrow James Fincham saying, this is housekeeping. We are training a new terminal agency coordinator, which is basically our person who coordinates with the NCIC and ties and inlets to allow us to have car computers and do the queries and stuff that we do with those computers. And then to do that, the applicant has to take with him our general orders for NCIC and ties. Unfortunately, we've always just gone by the rules that they put in place that basically put us in the penitentiary if we violate them. So we're just going to ask that you take those rules which were presented to you and just incorporate them into our general orders as policy.
Okay, we have further presentation. We need a motion.
Motion to consider the amending of the police department general orders. As read.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have a motion on the board then to approve amending the City of Newport Police Department General Orders. It has been properly seconded. Just need are there any questions to that motion? Hearing none, please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. We're going to send him to training Thursday with the new general order.
All right, item I is consideration of the parking plan for Upper Mims Street.
This is a request of the potential redevelopment of the church into a mixed-use retail residential space. They felt that typically that building's occupied to capacity on one day a week, Sunday, and there's enough parking downtown to accommodate anybody coming to church between the public lot and they use the bank lot up and down the street. But the developer requested that potentially if you've got, if you're increasing the density and the time that people, to 7 days a week that people are going to be there, that there's more parking around it. So this would add more spaces, strapping up MIMS, all contingent on the development, of course. And we would do that if and when it was necessary, that the certificate of occupancy was ready to be issued over there, and after paving and a couple other things. But this is sort of what we did for Main Street and McSween and MIMS lower whenever we approved those parking plans.
The parking plan, is it for the slanted parking or for parallel parking?
It's two parallel spots at the bottom because generally you don't have traffic a whole lot of two-way traffic. The most is when you got somebody at the bottom waiting on the light, and if the light changes, you're passing there. So you'd parallel at the very bottom to give you more room for that situation. And then as you go further up, we wouldn't stripe the street. So you'd only, it's the way it is now. It's striped up a couple of feet, maybe 20, and then the striping ends. So we would do it that way, and then no striping, so that the spaces you could fit more spaces up. I'd like to do it parallel all the way up, but given that they're planning on having residential units and retail in and out,
Try to teach that in driver's ed there.
Go up the hill.
I don't know if I accept that challenge, Code.
Okay, you've heard the presentation then. What's the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the parking plan for Upper Mim Street, all dependent upon the approval of the transaction. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your approval by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Consideration of proposal for purchase of 2 city lots.
I'm going to request this be tabled this month. I don't think that, I expected to have some more documents from the other party, and we don't have them yet. So it's safest and smartest to table this until I've got better information for the council to consider.
Okay. No action. Take no action?
Yeah.
All right. Item 10 is bids, purchases, and expenses. Consideration of bids for excavator for the street department.
The street department has been looking for an excavator that would fit our needs, and we found one at Contractors Machinery. Found it on the lot last month, and before we could get to you all and get it on the docket, someone come by and bought it. So we have the money in there to buy it with, and I'm just asking your approval that we go ahead and get on the list for the next one that comes in. They estimate it being 9 to 10 months before they ever get one. So we already have this money in the budgeted in. It's $131,469.07, and it would meet the needs of the street department of what we need.
Was that a carryover to the next
It
budget?
is. This was a budget amendment that was approved to buy it last year, and then, like you said, it snatched right out from under us, so next best thing.
And then it went up, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Will this lock in the price if you can get on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This locked in the price. It's good for 30 days.
Okay, you've heard the bid for excavator for the street department. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve the bid for the street department in the amount of $131,469.07. Has been properly seconded. We need a roll call.
Alderman Connie Ball.
Yes.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mike Profit.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Consideration of bids for professional services for Park Master Plan for Parks and Recreation.
There's more every time I walk.
Start to say we started the meeting a little early.
There's a lot of good reason there. First of all, James, thanks for the city picnic. I know it's not been mentioned, but thank you for what you did there and for all us employees.
Thank you for your help. You and your team play a big part in it.
Yeah, we enjoy it. We enjoy it. It's a process right now to where we're looking for help with our architect services, engineering services, and so we've been advised to put an RFQ out, request for qualifications. So once we put these RFQs out, then we are instructed to put a committee together to look at the proposals. And so we had 2 proposals come in, and our committee sat down and looked at the RFQs, and we would like to recommend Lowe's Design. With this in process, this is about White Oak facility, the design and how we're going to lay it out. It's going to be the city park based up on the tennis courts and swimming pool. how we're going to address that, and maybe additional parking with some other things that council might want. And the third thing is the Woodland Park. And so we've got 4 items there that we're requesting help. So we're asking you guys to approve Lowe's Design to help us. Then our next step would be to meet with Lowe's design team and the conservation department with our financing and with our administrator, so we could sit down and see what they can do as far as costs to help us design what we want here in Newport. So that's why we're requesting for Lowe's and Associates, or Lowe's Design, to be approved.
Okay. Further presentation, what is the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, have a motion on the board then to approve the bids for professional services for park master plan for Parks and Recreation, although I didn't see a bid amount.
There is not a bid amount, it's a request for
Just-
qualifications.
I got you.
That's why our next step is to meet with them to lay out what our plan is so that we can get cost estimates.
Gotcha. Okay. We have the motion on the board then to approve that professional services for park master plan for Parks and Recreation. For you saying Lowe's, it looks like lose, but I don't.
It's Lowe's. We've known David for about 50 years, but David passed and Chris is taking over the company now. So
It has been properly seconded. What's the board's pleasure? Well, it's been properly seconded, so signify your approval by aye.
Aye.
And nays like sign. Motion carries.
thank you, council. One thing I would like to mention, one of our board members is really ill, and so I'll make sure to talk to you individually about this board member with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. So he's kind of incoherent right now, so I want to pass that information over to you guys so that you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from citizens. Yesterday, I got a phone call from Ms. Baxter, who is here. She wanted to be added to the agenda, but I told her it was too late. But I told her there was an opportunity for her to come and let us know what she's got, what she's planning for September the 17th, and hopefully next month we get her on the agenda for her plans. So, you're up.
We're with the Cobb County basketball team, boys basketball. Last year, we made a request for permission to have a duck race for our basketball fundraiser. And this year, we'd like to do that again. We will put the ducks in. We did it down in River Street, but we're going to try to come up a little bit farther this year and put them out, and then get the ducks out of the river here behind the police station, and the Newport Rescue Squad come and helped us out. So we're requesting the permission to have our duck race again. Our boys this year, our boys are seniors, all of ours, see? And we're requesting that for this fundraiser, because we're wanting to take our kids after Christmas to a basketball tournament in Tampa, Florida. So we're trying to fundraise to get our boys down there. It'll be the first time for our boys. So that's what our request is that, and it's on Saturday, September the 17th.
Since this was not an agenda item, I don't know that we can take it up as,
No, we'll have it on there.
I have it on for next week. So this is basically an informational
I'd
thing.
sure like to go along with their security.
We might need to.
How many weeks vacation you got?
But thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay. Any other comments from citizens?
I have something that I'd like to bring to your attention. Today at the Tanner Building, we had loads of fun today. I acquired a new hat. I was a park attendant. Law enforcement was there, and they took up all the parking spots there. Wouldn't be a problem but I have seniors that are in wheelchairs that come. They have walking sticks, and we were forced to either park in the upper parking lot or across the street at CVS. And I watched the lady with a walking stick come down those steps, and it was very, my heart was pounding. Those steps are kind of steep. I've fallen going up the steps, but I'm clumsy. But we need to, and tomorrow is the farmer's market. So law enforcement, I don't know where they're going to park. I did ask them to park up in the upper parking lot to give us some spaces down there where we are, because we have a large group that comes in on Wednesdays. Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have large groups that come in. So we need to park close to our door. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and maybe you can figure out something. I don't know.
You made the chief aware of it?
It's one of those rare things, the county sheriff's departments are having their in-service, half work one week and half go to school. Next week they invert. And Monday they were at the firing range, so it didn't cause any problems. But when you take all the state certified officers that work for the county and divide them by two and put them in one place, it fills up a parking lot fast. And I think that would be whoever coordinated the class to say this is designated parking for this class during those times, because they'll be there the rest of the week and next week.
So that just happened once? That just happens every day?
It's once a year that they have their in-service that big. And we have actually been trying to schedule some classes, but won't be near that many. We're trying to schedule a couple of training classes. We can incorporate those, put 4 of our guys or 5 in, and then have 15 or 20 from out of town, so it won't be as many. But we're trying to coordinate that, but that's just in the future. But this quickly, outside of contacting the sheriff's department and asking them if they would agree to park in a different lot, or I don't know, you couldn't move the farmer's market to the upper lot for 2 weeks, but or something in the future.
The reason that it's came up, excuse me for interrupting, is because this is the first year that they've done the in-service at the Tanner Building with Walter State.
Right.
They have always used the community center and parked on the Prospect and the upper parking lot for their attendance there at the center. So this year wasn't expected the overflow of parking, because everybody that came drove a vehicle. I mean, I don't think there was many that carpooled, and Maurice is right. And tomorrow, up to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, there will be aqua sizes running about 40 strong there at the center. Then you're running your farmers markets. That's just been tons of success this year. Then if you do have all the people coming to the in-service, there's going to be a lot of activity, vehicle parking.
I get an average of about 50 people on Wednesdays.
For years, they did that out at the fairgrounds, at the emergency center out there next to the fire hall. And I don't know if they outgrew that facility or what happened out there, and then they started at the community center for the last couple of years. And I didn't, until I saw the vehicles up there today at lunch, I wasn't aware they had moved it to Walter State. They must have coordinated that with Walter State. We didn't. Yeah. My office didn't have any connection to that at all. I was surprised by it when I saw it today up there. And Ms. Robinson's correct. I mean, there wasn't an empty parking spot in the lot, because I looked and it was packed.
It's where's the farmers market setting up now? Are they up on in community center parking lot? Yeah.
Yeah. The lower parking lot down the gym side, that front side right there. They've got quite a few vendors.
Now they fill up the lower side of the lot.
Yeah. Then there's many patriots that are coming. The middle parking areas, there's probably 35 cars that get taken up with them coming in and out. Then you have the Prospect side right there where the parking is, that most of the people that are coming to the community center park in that lot right there, that first 35 spots.
But it would be easy for the sheriff's department to park over on us, then walk down to the Tanner building versus those seniors having to come down those steps.
Well, that was my next question. Could that be arranged?
Ever who's coordinating their efforts, we don't want to be the parking police, but if you tell us to, we'll.
We could,
So you put no me?
I could call
We already got the
CJ.
pool police going on.
I could call CJ and ask him if he could do an email blast or a text blast and ask, you expect them to park in the upper lot?
Yeah, I would do, well, just them upper numbers right there, closest to Prospect, so they could come down and come in the backside on the second floor of the Tanner building, because that's where they're going to, right? So they can come in on Prospect side still, yeah.
And there again, you're dealing with a bunch of people, and those that get the text and will, and those that don't maybe won't. And I'll talk to CJ as soon as we leave this meeting and tell him that that is a request because of the expected crowd of people in the next couple of days.
Unless they need their vehicles for training purposes, maybe they could carpool or something, maybe come
What we could
out.
also do is maybe just speak with CJ, and once, I think he said they're going to start their classes about 8:30 in the morning, so maybe just at the beginning of their session, just say, hey, is there anyone that would be willing to leave your vehicle so that the seniors would have a closer, safer spot.
I don't think you'd get any resistance. You wouldn't get any kind of resistance.
And I'll be there myself, and so I'll be more than happy to just offer them up for that.
I think it's just an oversight. There was schedule of facility, and, everybody all of a sudden's got stuff in that same schedule.
And see, Friday, they're going to have the book fair there too, so, or the kindergarten something, book fair, the mobile bus is going to be there.
That might be something we have to look at, whoever coordinates the rental of that facility for classes, to make sure they arrange parking in particular spots.
Well, it's good that it's that popular.
Now, we did agree to the overflow from the bus company. They've already contacted us about that, so there'll be a lot of traffic up there for that day. Because I think they're giving away Dolly's books too.
And backpacks with school supplies and so forth, yeah.
Okay.
I will
If you
address that
handle
with-
that one, Chief, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from citizens? If hearing none, we're going to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.